Hi there, I'm Danelle, and I've been an artist for almost 40 years. I graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from Oregon State University in 1987. And I will be 62 next month, and I decided it's time to get serious about my art. And I paint mostly oil paintings I love animals, so most of them are, on my website I say I paint fantastic creatures. I paint everything from different migrating birds like a sandhill crane. I've done a painting behind me of a short-billed dowitcher. I have this octopus that I painted just for fun last year. So I almost exclusively paint animals. But through YouTube this last year, I really wanted to start a YouTube channel. I started one based on our quirky town of Ketchikan, Alaska. We're in the rainforest. It's really interesting. But I started looking at artists' channels out of curiosity. I've really enjoyed some of them a lot and got inspired to think about my art. What am I doing with it? Have I lost my creativity? Am I focused enough? What, should the paintings I've been doing mostly have been when I see an open call exhibit come up, like the Hummingbird Festival show put on by the U.S. Forest Service. I did that dowitcher for that show. But I've noticed that when I am doing paintings specifically for an exhibit, I get kind of stiff, I feel kind of uncreative, I'm just working for the goal of getting that painting done in time for the show. And my paintings I do for fun turn out a little more creative like this. And I watched a video the other day where this guy was talking about creativity. And he was talking about how, thinking back to when you're a child, did you look at the clouds and you saw, well, he just assumed everybody did this. You would not just see clouds, but you see dragons. You would see a cardboard box and it would be a spaceship. And I started pondering, thinking, am I actually a creative person? Because when I was a kid, I did not look at clouds and see dragons. I was very practical. I loved crafts. I did about every craft imaginable. I crocheted. I did leather work tooling. I did knitting. I did lots of drawing. I wrote poems. So I was creative, but I didn't really live in my imagination like that, where I saw creatures in the clouds or whatever. So I have been thinking about creativity and what does it mean? Are my paintings creative enough, or am I just copying a photo? As a wildlife artist, I guess I wouldn't say I'm exclusively a wildlife artist, but that's what I've focused on in over the years. Am I being creative enough, being that I am looking at a resource photo, I'm not just using my imagination? And so I've been pondering that as I dive in and work to get more serious about my art, to build up my business. And I'm a big fan of Kelsey Rodriguez. She's an amazing artist who really gives a lot of good business advice for artists, which has really inspired me for the first time in years to get back to basics. What am I doing? Why am I doing art? And what is the purpose? What kind of artist do I want to be? I'm thinking about 40 years after I got my degree. And now there are so many opportunities for artists that we have the internet, we have YouTube, that to sell and to share with people, to learn, that we didn't have in 1987 when I graduated. And so that's what I'm thinking. I'm working on my website, trying to make it more accessible. I'm not a techie person, so that has taken me hours to put together. I have a WordPress website, which I think is considered a little less user-friendly. But I've been doing WordPress for years. I have a dog training website on WordPress. I have my art website, and I have actually a couple of just blogs for fun on WordPress. I also want to learn how to make prints, and I was watching Kayla Carlisle, another artist that I really admire, and she makes prints just from photos on her iPhone. I do not have a mirrorless DSLR camera, so I'm kind of experimenting with using some of my old photos. Some of my photos are very, very old. They're paintings from 12 years ago. So I'm kind of experimenting to see if I can get good enough prints. I just started that, just put some new prints on my website yesterday and set up my store. So I'm very, very new at being an artist online and trying to sell online. I really am excited about selling prints because selling fine art, your clientele is going to be the people who go to galleries. They have more money. They're up in a different echelon than just your average person that goes to a coffee shop. One of my favorite shows was a show that I did a couple years ago in a coffee shop where the Arts Council, their artist backed out at the last minute, so they asked me if I could just bring some of my paintings that I have sitting around and bring them for the exhibit. I'll show you this picture of one of my larger paintings, how we had to bring it on the back of my son's flatbed pickup truck. There's always the logistics with making largish paintings of just moving them around and storing them. I'm trying to make a little bit smaller paintings these days. This one I think is about 24 by 30. But anyway, I like the exhibits that are in really common spaces like coffee shops, because you just get so many just regular people. They're not the fancy people who go to exhibit openings and things like that. They're just people coming to get coffee. And so I love the idea of making prints and selling prints because I feel like you can access a whole lot more people and people in a whole different price range and salary range. So I'm excited about that. But it has been, I'm trying Printful on WordPress, and it's been a bit of a struggle with trying to get my photo DPI correct, and because if they're not big enough, they're not going to print clearly. So that's a big challenge that I'm working on. Another thing I'm doing is revisiting some of my favorite books that really inspired me to be creative, because I really felt like I feel like I've been falling into this must make a painting for a show, and so through that pressure I make paintings. This one I wasn't super happy with. I'll show it to you. This is the short build dowitcher painting I made for the recent Hummingbird Festival. It's still here because, as you can see, it's not fully framed. My living in Alaska, Amazon can be very difficult and slow here. The frame didn't arrive in time, so at the last minute I asked my son to make a frame for it, and he ran out of time. So it's still at home with a partial frame. But I think this painting is technically proficient, but it kind of looks like a textbook illustration. It's a little bit stiff and just kind of, it doesn't really inspire me. So I decided, through this refresh into my new obsession with art and making art and wanting to just get a fresh start on creativity and really connecting with my paintings, not just trying to make a nice picture of a bird. So this is a book that I've had for many years, and this book really affected me because I do tend to, and maybe it's from my childhood love of crafts and crafting things that are very perfect and precise. I even thought of earning a degree in scientific illustration because I do really like to be precise. I'll show a couple photos of some of the early illustrations that I did that are really precise, and I do still enjoy doing that. But when I paint, I really want to, and this is a favorite quote of mine, I have it on my bulletin board back there. I want to paint that thing which exists between me and the object. I have that attributed to Paul Cézanne, but I've looked it up online because I think I saw it attributed to Mondrian once too. So I'm not really sure which artist said that, but that has resonated with me so much over the years. I don't want to just paint an octopus. I don't want to just paint a German Shepherd. I want to paint, because I can make it technically proficient, but I want to paint what I feel about that animal. What is it saying to me? That's one thing I kind of like about this one. it pulls out what I see as just the vibrance of an octopus, its energy. Octopus have so much of this almost alien intrigue, which I thought this kind of lime green color contrasted with the purple. And sometimes it's hard for me to even articulate why I painted something that way. I'm sure other artists can understand that. But I'm aiming to paint that which exists between me and the object. Even if it's a still life, I used to love painting still lifes until my ex-husband said years ago, aren't those kind of boring? Aren't those student level? So I haven't painted as many still lifes. Maybe I'll do a whole series of still lifes now that I think of it, because I really like doing those. And those are great exercises for just practicing looseness, practicing color, practicing composition and line, experimenting with different mediums. That's something I want to do too. I want to get back to experimenting with watercolor. I did a sketch last night of with a a waterproof pen and some watercolor. Watercolor drives me crazy. It just never acts the way I want it to. It feels really out of control. So it's really good for me to try to do something in watercolor. I'm used to oil, where you can scrub it in and put it where you want it. I also teach paint and sip painting, so I do some paintings, totally different style of paintings for those classes. And that's another way that I like to connect with just the regular person, is the paint and sip classes, because they're filled with people who are not artists, who are nervous about not being artists, and I absolutely love to guide them through. And in a 2-hour class, they can go from saying, oh, I can't even draw a straight line, and I'm not an artist, and in 2 hours, they have a finished painting that they're proud to sign and take home. I love that. It's so cool. I get so much more joy out of that than even showing in a gallery. But back to this book. I love this book because it really goes to that quote of painting between what is between me and the subject. This is a really cool quote. I need my glasses because I will be 62 next month. This is really cool. And he says, please realize you are not making a picture. You are not being creative. We are just conducting an experiment in seeing, in undivided attention. The experiment is successful if you succeed in feeling you have become that leaf or that daisy, regardless of what appears on the paper. This was so good for me when I first read this book years ago. It really is a very meditative way to approach drawing and art, where you're not just approaching the painting saying, oh, this eye is shaped this way, this arm is shaped that way. You're actually, and I feel this with animal paintings especially, you're feeling the way that skin slides along through the water. If you're drawing a horse, you feel like your brush is almost caressing the muscle on its back or on its neck, the plane of the bone and the muscle on its cheek. So it's almost like this melding when you get into the zone, whether it is a flower, whether it is a little plant, a leaf, just feeling what it is. And so that's when I'm excited to get back to, not just saying, I am going to paint a dowitcher for a show and then paint an illustration of a dowitcher. I want to get back to something more like this, where I'm really feeling the animal and bonding with the animal in a deeper way. It feels good too to get in that meditative zone. And if you have any thoughts on this, on creativity, what is creativity? How do you understand it through the style of your art? We all see like an abstract painting or a very brushy, expressive painting, and we kind of automatically judge that as being more creative. But I feel like an illustration of an octopus like this is just as creative. You're using the color to express your feeling, what's between you and the creature. You're using the composition, the way that you decide to pose it on the canvas, whether it's a horse or a bird or a human, even a portrait, how do you tilt the head, can really just convey so much about the personality and the spirit of that animal. So that's what I'm excited about, getting this channel going, getting my website spruced up, getting some prints out there so people can share my work more, and learning more from you. I am really enjoying delving into the art channels and learning more every day. If you're interested in a little tour of not only my studio, my very, very small studio, and some of my past work all the way back from when I was in college, check out this video here. Take care and have fun creating.